So my name's Amber, this is my lovely husband Tim, and this is our fantastic board game collection. So we thought we'd try something new. We want to do some videos that will basically introduce us, and over the time we'll talk through a variety of different games that we've got, and we'll even do some little run-throughs. We can show you the component qualities, because that's quite an important thing for me when looking to buy a game. Yeah, and we have a wide variety of games. So what sort of games have we got, Tim?
So we've got games that Amber likes the most, which is sort of
pretty normally.
Yeah, pretty more abstract sort of games like Coral or Holy, which we recently picked up at the UK Board Games Expo. I tend to like games that are slightly more strategic, require a bit more in-depth sort of thinking, planning what you're going to do next, which gives us an interesting balance of games that we can talk about. And our general sort of plan is going to be to run through a couple of games that we like, listen to any feedback that we get from anyone watching, and aim to sort of summarise what people like, I suppose.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, this probably isn't your first board game video that you've watched. When we've watched them before on YouTube, I'm probably about 10% focusing on the person talking, and moreover looking at the collection behind them, and just having a look at the titles, having a look at the boxes, and then Googling the game. So if you do see any games in our collection that you want us to talk about, or that you're not quite sure and you want us to pull the box down and have a look through for our next video, just let us know. We'll happily be led by you guys as well. We've got a nice selection of games. We've got some new releases. So the first game we'd like to introduce to you is Coral. So there's this little one here. Okay, so it is by Two Tomatoes Games. It's the first game we've got by this company. We have a lot of games by Pandasaurus as well. Now this game here is appropriate for 1 to 4 players. Only takes 10 to 20 minutes, and it's recommended for 8+. We don't have any children, but it probably would be quite good for children. But obviously there are small choking hazards, so please don't leave them unattended. Yeah. But yeah, as you can see here, very cute box, very pretty. Would also look nice just on a shelf as part of home decor. Very abstract. Yeah. And then on the back, it's got a brief little description with a diagram of how we play this game, which we'll show you now. We'll first talk through the components, because they're a nice quality, and for me, I'm quite a hands-on person, so I like to be able to feel the components, and I think that's quite a common thing now, actually. So we'll talk through the components next.
Just taking a quick look over the components that you get in the box. Here you've got your starting rock, which is where your coral is all built from, your lovely little wooden meeples, followed by your individual coloured coral blocks. There's 4 colours for 4 players and 6 blocks each. And then as we go across, we've got the bag and cards that you use for solo play, along with the instructions. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just talk through the basics of the first couple of turns of a game of Coral, how to set up the game, how to get yourself started. As you see, what we've got laid out in front of both of us now is what you will have as a start of a 2-player game. So you have all 6 of your own coloured blocks, and then 3 neutral coloured blocks that you build up to make your coral reef. The overall aim of the game is to have as much of your coral facing upwards and facing the sun, so visible from above, than anybody else. The way the game starts is you've got your starting rock, which is the rock that all coral life clings to. So first bit of the game is we go through taking it in turns to completely cover that rock. So for example, I will play my first bit of coral here, but therefore it's touching the cube shape of the starter rock. And then Amber will And then we will keep going round following the same general pattern until the cube is completely covered. So I'm going to use a neutral piece of rock here. So I've covered up that section, meaning Amber has to play on top.
Oh, why have you done that?
Now that that's complete, the next stage is we put our meeples onto it. So I will put mine first. Your meeple can't go on your own coloured rock. So for example, I'm going to choose to place mine here, because then on the next turns when I'm placing, I have to place on the cube that my meeple is sat on.
And I will place mine, so I can't place them on the white ones because I placed them. So that allows me to either place on the neutral one, Tim placed, but I'm not going to do that because that's quite closed in. So I'm actually going to place mine here. The reason why is I've now got more options I can branch out from.
Okay, now we're on to the first turn of the game, so to speak. So I'm going to choose to play another neutral meeple, neutral piece of coral. I'm going to place it here, touching my cube, my meeple's cube, giving me some extra space around to work from.
Yes, I was also going to do the same. I might not now for the sake of the video. Oh well. So I'm going to place a neutral one as well, just creating as much space as I can, and so as much coverage as I can for my coral. Okay, so I'm placing it here. The reason I've chosen neutral is because it will allow me to move my meeple to a neutral one, which then I can cover this area, you see. Whereas if I placed my one here, for example, I have now blocked my meeple from coming this direction.
Okay. On my turn to play one of my own. I'm going to go in here, which just somewhat blocks Amber's options a little bit, but it also just gives me some coverage out from where I was.
So I'm going to put mine there.
Okay.
The nice thing about this game is we can completely play sort of almost two separate games without directly interfering or covering up each other's coral. However, me and Tim are quite competitive when we play together, so often we'll end up making it competitive and we'll end up covering each other's coral, which we'll probably demonstrate to you sooner rather than later.
Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show a couple of the other options that you've got during your turn. So in your turn you can either play a piece of coral or you move your meeple. So your options are to either move, which is you can slide so long as you're not going over one of your own pieces of coral, but you can go as far as you want. Verticality doesn't matter because you're in the water, you basically just float from piece of coral to piece of coral. The other option is you can choose to completely remove your meeple, which does lose you essentially a turn because this meeple has now floated away from the coral, is drifting in the water following the currents, and then on my next turn will come back down wherever I choose on the coral. So for example, I could choose to come down here, which then gives me options all around here, opening up areas. So I'll take mine back and then it will be Amber's turn.
So you floating yours, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I will actually just move mine.
Okay. And then now again, as I say, as it's my turn, I float back down. And I'm going to land here.
Oh, it's my turn, sorry. You see how you've made that difficult for me. You like doing that.
Okay. Now what we're going to do is we'll pause this here and we'll come back and just show you the end result of a full built coral. And here we have our finished coral reef. As you can see, it's grown a little bit, stretched out as well as up. Excuse the snuffling in the background, that's the cat. And then to decide who the winner is of the game, you basically have a look directly from above.
So you're the sunlight beaming down on the reef.
Yeah, and you count how many of your coloured coral that you can see. So in this case, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 visible salmon coloured coral. And then Amber has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 visible coral. Which actually takes us to then what the tiebreaker is, which then looks at who has the highest coral and how many coral do they have on that height. Which in this case, if we then look from the side, I have the highest bit of coral, which is these two here, which means I've got 2 at that height, which actually puts me at the winner because I've reached the closest to the sunlight.
Okay, so that was coral. Okay, so just a quick recap. This is King. You will see him in a lot of videos, I'm sure, and he's very vocal, so apologies for that. So just to recap, coral is a quick pick up and play game, very easy to introduce to family and friends who are not board game players. It's a nice little gateway game. We really enjoy it. We play it a good couple of evenings after work because there's no setup time at all. We love a big game, but sometimes having no setup time just works a bit better, doesn't it?
It's also really nice that you can play it on pretty much any flat surface that you have.
Yeah.
Coffee tables, it doesn't take up very much space
At all.
Which is really, really nice on an evening or sort of days where you don't want to
And when we
go
go glamping, it's definitely one to take when we go glamping. So yeah, thoughts are, I think it's a game that we're really happy we picked up. Like I say, it was a very reasonable price from the convention, and would recommend it to add to your library. A lot of board game cafes might even have it now for you to trial whilst you're drinking a nice milkshake. But yeah, so let us know what you think to our first video. It's not perfect, apologies for that, we are only human and we are getting used to this. But next week we're talking about a different game. Do the same kind of format unless you think it doesn't work, and yeah, just put some comments about things you don't like, you do like. If you see any games on here that you like, oh, that's the cat. If you see any games on the shelves that you like that we can talk about, then absolutely just drop us a comment, and we will see you again soon. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.